Welcome to the J Perspective podcast. I'm your host, Janet Shea. My guest today is Monica Smit. She's part of the executive team at Put Australia First. She's a political activist known for her outspoken views and activism in Australia. Monica, welcome to the J Perspective. Do you want to just tell us about who is Monica Smit?
Yeah, so I guess nobody knew my name until COVID. I was living in Melbourne, Australia, which ended up being the worst lockdown place in the entire world, a competition that we didn't want to win or participate in, but we did win that one. And so I started an organisation called Reignite Democracy Australia, which ended up being the biggest voice against the government's lockdowns, vaccine mandates and things like that. So that's where it all started. During that time, I became a little bit too loud and I was a bit of a problem. So I got arrested and put in prison in solitary confinement for 22 days. And that was just because I refused to sign the bail conditions. I got out with amended bail conditions. And ever since then, I guess I've just been trying to collectively bring people together to be a voice against the government. Obviously, the subjects have changed and the campaigns have changed, but I'm still doing that, actually.
Wow.
Mm.
Can you tell us about that period for a bit, that prison period?
Sure. So basically, it was August 2021 when I got arrested for a charge of incitement. I got charged with inciting people to break COVID restrictions. So, for example, not wearing a mask or leaving your house. Now, doing those things was only a finable offence. It's not a criminal offence or a jailable offence, but I got criminally charged for inciting summary offences. So it's definitely a loophole in the criminal system, which should be closed. But really, the idea was that they would give people like me who had a voice online bail conditions to shut their mouth. And it takes months to fight the bail conditions. It takes years to get to trial. And in that time, you've signed the bail conditions and your mouth is shut. So I just decided to say no to the bail conditions. And that's why I went to prison for 22 days, because we had to wait for the appeal of the bail conditions, which we won. But what's really important is the timing of this was when, and whether you're pro COVID vaccines or not, it doesn't really matter for the purpose of this story. I was a voice for people who didn't want to be coerced into medical decisions, and they didn't want their livelihoods to be on the line in order to keep their job. They had to take a medical procedure that they weren't comfortable with. So that's really where I stood. Anyway, August 2021 was when the mandates came in. And that's exactly when I got arrested and given bail conditions to shut my mouth. So I don't think that timing is a coincidence. And so the bail conditions were, I was not allowed to talk about COVID restrictions or COVID in the privacy of my own home. In my dreams, in my car, I could not mention the word COVID, which is a bit ridiculous because that's all everybody was talking about. So literally, I could not participate in political conversations, even in the privacy of my own home. And they wanted me to delete everything off the website that mentioned COVID or COVID restrictions, which was everything. And I had 7 staff, 110,000 email subscribers who were depending on me for information and jobs. So if I had signed those bail conditions, they all would have lost their jobs. And all of those people would have lost that collective voice at the most critical time for them, which was when things got really serious for people. So that's why I didn't sign the bail conditions, and winning the appeal was really pivotal because the next person that got charged with incitement, Topher Field, he got my amended bail conditions that I had to fight for. So it was definitely worth it. And, they tried to take my voice away, but it actually backfired marvelously, because instead of taking my voice away, they gave me a bigger voice because they made me a martyr. And then I got to keep doing my work after 22 days anyway. So it actually worked out really well.
Whew.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like you're describing Australia, to be honest. It sounds like you're describing somewhere like Russia. So it's very
Yeah.
upsetting to hear all of that.
Oh, yeah, I know. I look, I find silver linings in everything, but I can understand that it is probably confronting for some people. And this was 5 years ago. And what people need to remember is that the government was willing to put me in prison just for speaking against them 5 years ago. And I've never been in trouble with the law again before. And so they're willing to do that to you as well, and people say, well, I don't need my privacy because I'm not saying anything wrong. I'm not a problem. Well,
Yeah.
I wasn't a problem either until I started speaking up against lockdowns. And so you will appreciate your privacy when you start saying something the government doesn't like. And that's when it all comes to head. And
And that can always
yeah.
change. What they like and don't like can always change.
And you don't know when, and you don't know who's influencing them. You don't know who's working together for certain things. And I never thought in my wildest dreams that the government would put me in prison, but they did. So don't be
Mhm.
shocked when crazy things happen, because
Wow.
that's what happens. And there was people on the streets. There was people who were celebrating my incarceration. You know, my fellow Australians who I thought we were all like together. I thought that, you know, it was us against the government, but it turned out, you know, propaganda and brainwashing can be a super powerful thing. And that was pretty hard, you know, for me.
Mm. So fast forward to today,
Mm.
make that connection for me to what you're doing now and put Australia first.
Well, Put Australia First was actually born because there clearly was a patriotic movement that started around July 2025. I think it started really when the Free Palestine people started waving ISIS flags without punishment, when they started burning the Australia flag without
Mm.
punishment. It really sparked something in everyday Australians. And there was a huge protest on August 31st. And unfortunately, those protests, especially in Melbourne and Sydney, they were hijacked very well by actual Nazis, not the mainstream media propaganda Nazis. I mean, self professed Nazis. And that really concerned me because a lot of people were attending those protests thinking that they were a part of something innocent. And then they ended up cheering on actual Nazis on stage because they couldn't see who it was and they couldn't hear what he was saying, but they were cheering because everyone in the front was cheering. And it was actually Nazis who set up the stage, had the microphone and everything. And so
Wow.
people ended up being in video footage of Nazi propaganda, which makes it look like they're growing in Australia. And I don't really think they are. I just think that people were innocently a part of that propaganda, which is really sad. So I started Put Australia First to be a patriotic movement for Australians who don't want to be associated with Nazis. So that's why I started Put Australia First,
Wow.
actually. Yeah.
And what are the things that you're dealing with now?
Well, I would say right at this very moment, I think the biggest concern that we face is the division between pro-Australia people and Free Palestine people, or you know, the Iranian supporters and the Free Palestine people. And I think this is a real dangerous thing, because
Mhm.
people on my side can tend to hate the Free Palestine people and vice versa. But what's actually happening is the division's being seeded and accentuated by the government and by the police because the mishandling of the bias two-tier policing. So the police seem to be going after the extreme right, but not after the extreme left. And I don't know who chooses which person gets punished, even though they're both committing a crime. They either leave them both alone or they punish both of them. But I don't know who's deciding this, but it's creating huge problems where the moderate right are now actually getting pushed into the extremist right because they feel like they're not just being silenced, they're being mistreated. And they're starting to hero some of these Nazis who are getting who are getting punished with these new hate crimes. But then on the other side, an Aboriginal kid on a bike can say that all white people should be genocided, and the police don't go after him. And it's causing a huge problem, and they're doing it on purpose.
Mm.
And I don't particularly know what to do about it, except for sharing with people that the guy burning the flag, in my opinion, is actually not the problem. It's the people at the top who are deciding who gets punished. That's the problem. If the guy burning the Australia flag also got punished, then at least the right would feel like they're getting some accountability, but they're not. It's really strange. Mm.
Mm.
So I don't know how I'm going to fix that, but I just want to remind people that we're not the problem. They are.
Yes.
But yeah, so Put Australia First has done two events so far, and we get less attendance in person because we're more moderate. We're a very moderate message, very common sense, and the far right and the far left hate us. So that's a perfect place to be. Those are the types of people that we like to hate us because we don't want to be associated with them. So it's a bit of a harder slog for us because extremism at the moment gets a lot more attention from the media, from the government, and even negative media gets attention. So it's a bit of a harder slog for us, and I've realised this because this is the first time that I've been in the middle that the first time that I've had a moderate message, because during COVID it was extreme to be anti-lockdown and it was really easy
Mm.
to get noticed. Now it's a lot harder because moderate messages just aren't interesting, and they're not controversial enough. But our what I did notice is that our online content from the speeches of the day have been getting millions of views. One
Mm.
video got over 2 million views on my Facebook
Mm.
page, and my Facebook
Mm.
page is only 70,000, so it's not a huge page. So
Mm.
that goes to show that I think the moderate message is more popular. It's just that the moderates don't really come to protests. They are at home with their kids. They're going to football games. They don't want police confrontation, and they don't want confrontations with counter protesters, but they'll
Mm.
watch online and they'll support online. So I think it's really important that we continue this, because even though it can be difficult, it's like an uphill battle to get the numbers. I think there will come a time when Put Australia First moderate message is going to resonate a lot more than the extremist message. And so we're just gonna keep plowing ahead with that.
Yeah, because those people that are watching online, they're the voters, so it's okay whether
It's
they come.
okay.
Yeah. And can I ask you, who are the far right people? What's
Oh,
far right in
I
Australia?
mean,
Is that the
the
Nazis?
Nazis. Yeah,
Oh,
that's the Nazis. Yeah.
mhm.
And a lot of people that I've worked with in the past are like, imagine you've got 0 to 10. Okay, 0 is far left and 10 is far right. Um, I'm like a 6. Okay, so I'm a little bit more conservative than the middle.
Yeah.
And most of the people I used to work with were a 6, but because the government is creating so much division and divisive content.
Mhm.
The 6s that I used to align with are kind of going more to an 8 at the moment. And
Oh.
I think the government knows that. And I think that they're really excited that people are turning extreme, because when you have extremists doing extreme things, it gives them more capability to bring in harsher legislation that actually silences our voice, even though we have nothing to do with them. They use them as a tool to bring in bad legislation. So actually,
Mhm.
tyrannical governments need extremists to mandate their extreme draconian freedom of speech, taking away freedom of speech. So they love it, actually.
What do you think
Mm.
of this new hate bill? What was it? Combating anti-Semitism
Anti-Semitism.
bill. What do you
Yeah.
think of
So
that?
it's got nothing to do with anti-Semitism, in my opinion. That's they're virtue signaling anti-Semitism to actually give more freedom of speech to the Muslims, which is just insane, because those are the people that committed the terrorist attack, and now they're almost more protected than the Jews. It's insane. And what's really interesting is that the two major parties worked together to legislate this bill, and that's really unprecedented and interesting for me. But it cannot be it cannot be minimized that this bill is the most anti freedom of speech legislation in the Western world. There is no other legislation that is as bad as this. I can be sued for something I said 2 years ago, if someone feels fear from it, even if I didn't intend to create fear. So now they can put people like me and you through the court system, even if they don't have a case. They will just bring us through the court system to drain our money, to threaten us and make us sad and anxious, and then we stop wanting to do the things that we're doing. These are the tools that they have in their toolbox. But most shockingly, what they could do is, One Nation and Pauline Hanson has had a huge populist movement in the last 6 months. And it's
Mhm.
because of the government's mishandling of things that she is growing so much. But this is just my opinion, and I guess it's a conspiracy at this point. But I think that the two major parties work together on this hate speech bill because they can use that to squash One Nation. So
Oh,
according to this legislation, they could declare One Nation a hate group, which means that Pauline Hanson is up for 15 years in prison and every single member can go to prison for 5 years. Now, if you don't think they would do it, well, I also didn't think they would ever put me in prison. So nothing would surprise me. And I still have a smile on my face because I think that the harder they go, the more arrogant they are, the quicker we're going to win something. I don't know how long
mhm.
that's going to take, and I don't know how much pain we're going to have to go through to get there, but I know it always backfires, and I'm a believer in God. So I always know that at the end of the day, he's in control. And so he's letting these things happen because probably people need to wake up. We now have people like Liam Hemsworth supporting Pauline Hanson. And like, there's
Is that
just,
right?
yeah, I just saw that. Look, it was just a
Oh,
headline. So
um,
you fact check me on that. But you'll notice younger people are going to the Pauline Hansons of the world, and it's creating, like, it's waking a lot of people up to the potential corruption of other things. So I think this
mm,
is really good. I think
yeah,
it's good. I'm not
yeah.
afraid of it at all because I've already been to prison. So, I don't
Oh,
really have much to
I
lose. So,
hope it never happens. Um, this bill is very confusing for me at the moment because I read the original before the second edit, whatever they call it, was done, the first 144 pages. And I found the only time I read the word anti-Semitism or Semites or Jews or anything like that, it was just in the title. So each page had the title combating anti-Semitism, but there was nothing in there about Jews. I was like, that's interesting. And there was nothing in there about the people that are being anti-Semites. And then the hate was so broad.
mhm.
It's just like, who cares? Hate all you like. I don't care if you hate me. Don't take away my right to hate someone. Don't take away someone else's right to hate me. Hate all you like. That's fine. As long as, you know, we're not calling for the death and murder, everything else is fine. And then I went and looked at the laws that we already have, and we already have great laws in the Criminal Act of 1995 and 1900, where it's just like anything that's a threat, there's already like a physical threat. So, for example, if a husband says, I'm going to come and kill you and the kids, that's a threat, that's a violation of a law. So it already exists. There's laws
Mhm.
about violence, there's
Mhm.
laws about harassment and intimidation, there's laws about incitement to harm. There's
Mhm.
laws on terrorist activities. We have these laws. We just need them to be implemented by our current government. That's
Yeah.
all. We don't need a hate bill.
Yeah, well, yeah, but there isn't laws to put someone in prison for accidentally causing fear in somebody else. And that's what they
But now
wanted.
there is.
That's what they wanted. And they're indiscriminately, I mean, they're biased on who they target with it. And that's the most annoying thing to me. Because if they actually punished everybody who was committing this crime now, I mean,
Yeah.
there isn't jails big enough.
The second edition, I'm still looking at it and trying to understand and learn it better. But speaking just on the first edition of this bill, combating anti Semitism, I don't even want Muslims to be charged for, or extremist Muslims to be charged for hating. I don't care about hate. I don't care. Like, that doesn't matter. We should all have a right to
Well, it's
have
subjective, isn't it?
conversations and have opinions. What everyone cares about, bottom line, is calling for death and actually rejoicing on the death of Australian citizens. No,
Yeah.
that
And
has to be a no.
it's like, this would be controversial for my community, but I even don't care if somebody burns the Australian flag because
Mm,
you can't have your cake and eat it too. Okay. If we want people to have freedom of speech, then we need to fight for their right to burn a flag. Okay. Because burning a flag doesn't hurt anybody. Okay. It's insulting, it's offensive, and you should leave the country, obviously. But they're idiots. They're self loathing idiots. And if they want to do that, that's fine. But people on our side, you can't call on them to get punished for hate crimes when you don't like the hate crime bills. that they're using on people like us. So
Mm.
for me, that's causing a lot of problems because people can't dissociate the fact that that's actually a freedom of speech. That is an expression of speech, and it's not causing suffering to harm to somebody unless they're burning the flag and calling to abolish Australia at the same time. But if they're just physically burning the flag, I mean, you've got to ask yourself, is that an expression of freedom?
Well, we do have a less violent way of showing that you're unhappy with the government using the flag, and that's the whole concept of turning the flag upside down. That's a concept that we're in distress. There's something that's not right way up in our government. So that is a time-honored traditional way. So I would encourage people to do that one.
Well, that's what we do though. But
Yeah.
if you're a leftist extremist, that you wouldn't put the flag upside down because you hate the flag. And
Yeah.
the thing is, when we react to someone burning the flag, we're actually playing perfectly into their hands because we're blaming the person who burned the flag instead of the fact that the police are not punishing them. And we
Yes.
don't want to be punished, but we want them to be punished. See how
Yeah.
there's a bit of a conflict there?
No, I understand. But I mean, I don't think I hope none of us are burning our flags on the right or middle or on the left.
Well, some people do. They burn the Palestinian flag to make a point that, well, if they're going to burn the Australian flag, we'll burn the Palestinian flag. And
Oh, okay, you're seeing those 2 as the
I
same.
have seen that, and I think that we need to remember that we don't want to stoop to their level. It's very tempting, very tempting. Trust me, I have
Mm,
quite a decent platform and I can do some damage in ways that just make me laugh but don't make any impact. So I started working on a campaign last week where I was going to advocate for mass reporting of hate speech online. And I was going to encourage people to report ridiculous things, like, let's say somebody posted that they like pineapple on pizza. And I decided that I was offended and fearful about that. So I was going to report it to the ADF that I was fearful of this pineapple on pizza, right? It's a joke. But I would have gotten 10, 15,000 people to report these ridiculous things. Now, it would have made me feel good. It would have clogged up the systems, but it's not going to change anything. So we need to be careful before we do things to make sure that we have the right intention, and we're
mm,
not just, and it's hard to be the bigger person, but it's the best way to be, even if you have to hold your tongue a little bit. It's hard, I know.
mm, mm. What is your hope for Put Australia First?
Hmm. Well, I hope to give a platform to good politicians. I hope to create youth groups down the track. We're going to hold indoor events where we can control the environment and not have to deal with police and things like that.
Mm,
And just a place where people can create community groups. So in the foyer of the area, we'll have different workshopping type of tables where people can actually join something so that when they go home, they don't just come and listen and then go home. They go home with a different community group or with something useful. Because I know a lot of protest groups, they go there and they protest and then they go home and it feels good, but it doesn't really change much. Well, it's hard to judge really, but I want to give solutions, join
mm,
a political party, get involved. If you're complaining about the country you live in and most of your complaints are politically based, but then you don't want to get involved in politics, well, you're just complaining and wasting your energy because you're not doing anything about it. Um,
mm,
get involved, whether it's with a major party or One Nation or a minor party. Do something. And
mm,
if everyone like us did something, we would run this country by now. But
mm.
we spent a lot of time complaining. And so I hope to offer avenues of solution, not just empty complaining.
Wonderful. And what are your hopes for Australians?
Uh, well, I'm pretty hopeful that there could be a political turning point in the next 6 years with
Mm,
how ridiculous things are going, which does cause people to wake up. And I just want to live in a country where we feel like the people we're paying to govern this country is actually putting this country first.
mm,
So when it comes to energy, when it comes to minerals and resources and housing and immigration, and I just I just want to know that the politicians aren't lining their own pockets before ours. I
right.
don't know. I feel like it's not that much to ask for. They get paid really good money. the tax system is just, it's just horrible. It feels so deflating to work so hard and have every single object taxed on and every single money, and then everything you pay for gets taxed on. And it's just, they're creating mistrust, they're creating rebels, they're creating extremism by just being terrible at their jobs. And I just wish that we had more than 50% of the government who I could actually feel like they actually cared about this country. And I feel like Australians would really appreciate some accountability. So the mistakes, if they make mistakes, these politicians, imagine if Anthony Albanese came on the TV and said, "I've made a mistake. I'm really sorry, and I'm going to try to fix it." Oh my gosh, it would be revolutionary, historic, really. And
Mm.
these politicians think that it's weak to apologize. It's not true. If you have teenagers and they do a bad thing, you ask them to apologize, don't you? Because that's how you learn and grow and evolve. Well, adults need to do that as well. And we could trust the government again. We could trust the mainstream media again, but there needs to be some accountability first. And if they don't do that, they are going to have violence on their hands and revolutionary acts on their hands. And that's going to be their fault. So I hope
Mm.
that they man up, take accountability, and, some punishment. They probably should take some punishment, but we'll see what happens.
So you saw what happened at Bondi, and did you hear Albanese apologizing at I think it was a service that was done a week or so ago?
I didn't hear his speech. Why?
I was just wondering, what did you think of that?
Oh, I didn't hear it.
Mm.
I try to avoid listening to him talk as much as possible, really. But
Oh,
it's
Lord.
so cringy, you know. He used to protest in he used to protest in Free Palestine protests, I think 20 years ago or something, and now he's pretending to be aligned with. It's very confusing.
Yeah, I
Very
found
confusing.
I'm still learning, but I found it very confusing hearing his apology speech and the hate speech bill becoming a law. I found those two possibly on as like lip service in one hand and the actual laws that are possibly going to be used against the wrong people was very controversial for me.
Yeah, and I try not to get caught in the shock of things because I'm no longer shockable. Because I've seen this sort of stuff play out. And, you know, just last year or the year before, 65% of the federal government voted against giving any medical care or treatment to babies who were accidentally born alive in late term abortions. So if 65% of the parliament want little babies to die slowly alone on a metal tray, can you really expect those same people to make good decisions in other bills? No. So when things like this get passed, don't waste your energy being shocked about it. You should know that that was going to happen. And instead use your energy to try to mock the legislation, try to find the holes in it, and have a look at the actual potential implementation of it, because passing legislation for these people is easy. It's their job. But implementing it is a whole different kettle of fish. You know, look at the under 16
Mhm.
social media ban. Failed pretty much miserably. So they like to talk a big talk, but actually they fail a lot of times. They just don't talk about the failures as much. So you really need to focus on the mistakes they make, and that takes away some of the fear. But I
Can you
think,
tell me
like I
about
said, yeah,
sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying it's going to backfire. But yeah, what were you going to say?
Can you tell me about the under 16 social media ban? How did that fail? I don't know much about it.
Yeah, well, 3 months leading up to it, it was like big news all the time, and a lot of people got jobs out of it, writing legislation, implementing softwares and things like that. And it's just a fear tactic to make it seem like the government can actually control things tedious like that. But actually, so many under 16-year-olds are still on social media. They were mocking him. They were taking screenshots of it. On TikTok, for example, myself included, a notification came up saying, "Are you over 16?" And you literally just pressed yes. That's it. Okay. But they loved talking about it leading up to the legislation. But then when they failed, not a word was spoken.
Mm.
and the implementation of things is really difficult. That the sort of software you would need to police the entire country to make sure everybody's under 16 isn't on social media is quite big. It's quite extensive.
Um,
It's quite expensive. Now, I'm not saying that if I had children under 16, I would be avoiding. I would not let them have social media. I know it's easier said than done, but so I like the idea of under 16s not being on social media. But I don't trust the government that they're caring about our children, because they also let under 16-year-olds go on puberty blockers, which change their hormones for the rest of their life, claiming that they care about them at the same time. It doesn't match up. You can't care about them on one hand and then destroy them on the other hand. It doesn't make sense. So I don't
mm.
trust them, obviously.
This might seem like a left field question, but you said you believe in God. What do you think of people who believe in God or Christians being involved in politics? There's a few people that would oppose it.
Yeah, well, I think that freedom of speech means that, anyone from any religion should be able to be in politics if they can get elected. Um,
Mm.
I would say, like, from my own experience, I feel comfortable with believers. It doesn't matter which religion they are.
Mm.
If they have a moral compass based on fear of God, then they're more likely going to be someone that I can trust. But there are bad Catholics and bad Christians and bad Jews and bad Muslims. There are bad people in the world. Some people use their religion to do bad things. They read scriptures out of context and all that sort of stuff. I get that. But I know for myself that my Catholic upbringing and moral compass, has been largely influenced by my belief in God. And that's what keeps me going. So I use it for my own benefit. And I do like to work with believers. I think
Mm.
I'm allowed to have that bias.
Oh yeah, I mean, whatever we believe, we always go to like-minded people. Like I'm in the film industry, I go to, meet with people who are actors or cinematographers because we have the same goal and mission. And
Yes.
it doesn't matter what the title of the group is, you're always going to have a bad apple, and God forbid you're the bad apple. And so you just, it makes sense to always go to like-minded people, and that doesn't mean you always agree with everything. One time, someone asked me, and Janet, do you agree with such and such on your religious beliefs? I said, look, I believe in Jesus, and sometimes I disagree with Jesus. Obviously, I'm wrong, but I'm just like, agreement with people is not the catalyst to always we have to agree on everything. But when our core values are that we would just want an Australia that is peaceful, that we have a democracy where we vote. So we don't like this one, we'll vote for the next one, and that our laws are not going to be used against us and our children who want to have the freedom to speak whatever their views are and share it like decent human beings, where you have the dialogue and the debates and the conversation instead of inciting violence.
Yeah, and it's really important, I find, with the Conservatives especially, that if someone you're working with disagrees on a fundamental core value of yours, you discard them completely. That's a
Mm.
really dangerous thing, because we're seeing a lot of splintering and a lot of factioning within the Conservative movement. So I think people need to stop looking for others who agree 100%. And if they agree 80%, that's pretty good. I don't even know what you think about COVID vaccines or lockdowns. I don't care, because that's not what we're facing right now. And
Yeah.
we could disagree on that, but work together on that, for example. Now, there are some things that are unnegotiable, but
Mhm.
otherwise, I find a lot of Conservatives are looking for purism, perfection in the people they follow or idolize, and it's just not possible. And every time you choose a side on a different topic, you're narrowing your community every time, because you're blocking that half, and then you'll end up alone again. So we need to be a bit
Yeah.
more careful with who we discard.
Absolutely. Very well
Mm.
said. Very true. How are you? How are you doing with all of this standing up and speaking up and activism?
Oh, like, I'm a unique character where I actually quite enjoy confronting authorities and things like that. In terms of, I find it interesting. So I represented myself in a 12-day trial against the police and won. I had the second in command police officer on the stand, and I was asking the questions, and of course that was very stressful, but I really enjoyed it actually. And not everyone has the personality to do that. And there's a lot of things that I can't do, but that's something I can do. So that's why I am continuously going to court, trying to find ways to set precedences and things like that. And obviously, I'm taking them to court for the 22 days in solitary confinement for absolutely
Mm,
no reason, because the charges were all dropped, of course. And so I'm using my story and my abilities to do that. And otherwise, I'm doing okay. I have hope. I travel a lot. I'm on tour right now in New Zealand. I have
mm,
30 events over a 6-week period. So I'm traveling all through New Zealand. And so I'm meeting people face to face in intimate situations. And that gives me a lot of hope in humanity, that when things get bad again, if they do, all of those people that I've met, I know exactly where they stand. And that gives me hope in humanity. So I'm more positive than pretty much almost anybody you might meet,
mm.
because I've
That's,
just seen how many communities we have, and so I have a lot more hope than other people.
that's amazing.
Mm.
How can people support and get connected with Put Australia First?
Well, there's a website, putaustraliafirst.com. I'm monicasmit.com. We're all over social media, and we just keep posting, and you'll find out when we're having events because, well, I'm sure you'll be invited too, Janet. So, um, well, it's the team. Like, I always know that I'm doing something right when things fall into place. Like, obviously, it's always a bit of work, but some things have a miracle element to them. And Put Australia First is exactly that. I've never, ever, and I've been doing this for 6 years, I've never had a team so effortlessly fall together and people are actually taking accountability to do their own things. I'm not having to do everything. I feel like I'm being supported. We're supporting each other. And I've never had that before. So it's a
Mm,
unique experience for me. And I believe that because of the varied team that we have with different skills, it's going to be a long-standing organization.
mm, mm. Well, Monica, thank you for coming and chatting today. And thank you for what you do for not just for yourself, but for people who um, don't really realize the impact of what you're doing for our benefit, to make our country a peaceful place, to make our country a place where we can openly speak up and make changes. So it's huge what you're doing.
Mhm.
So I hope
Well,
you remember that on the days you feel like um, you're not being heard. You're making a big impact.
yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. And you too. And yeah, we'll be working together in the future, I
Yeah.
imagine.
Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for joining in on this episode of The J Perspective. I'm your host, Janet Shea. Keep Australia wonderful, peaceful, and joyful.